Oh my goodness. Good morning, everyone.
Oh man. Good morning.
Very excited to have the Masterful Morning Show happening this morning because it is our first American morning where we have a guest. We have Adrienne Rouan on the show. Welcome, Adrienne.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. So happy to see you all.
And we just found out that Adrienne is waking up at 3:30 for this. We thought she was in a totally different time zone. She's actually not in. So thank you, Adrienne, for really taking the leap for this morning show and showing up for us today. We are so excited to have Adrienne. She has been a dear friend to all of us for me at least a year. And I'm so excited to get to share what she does in the world because it's absolutely beautiful. And also, she's a masterful manifester. So it's kind of like we've been doing life together and growing together. So it's really wonderful to have you, Adrienne. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you do?
Well, thank you, Marian, for that beautiful intro. And thank you to Melanie and Taylor as well. It's an honor to be here, like I said. And thank God for the Masterful Manifestors and your morning routine help, because I don't think I would have made it up at 3:30 if it wasn't for the discipline that I had learned. So yeah, I definitely met you guys all about a year ago, right? And it's been quite a beautiful ride. I have my own business, Adrienne Rouan LLC, and what I do is help women who have been through trauma. And that sounds a bit broad, but the typical client that I would work with are women who have had a pretty traumatic experience, usually including childhood and some type of intimate partner relationship. But they also have that fierce spirit inside, and they just need a little bit of help strategizing on how to get through our systems today. Because as a lot of us know, our systems aren't necessarily built for the individual who is going through a time when it's hard to think. A lot of times the systems require us to do a lot of work on our own, even if that means working with someone like an attorney. I'm specifically referencing court systems, medical systems, things like that. Even finding an attorney to help you navigate through a court system can be very challenging. Anyone who's had to hire an attorney knows there's really no manual or a place where you can go to type in, where's the best attorney who understands my trauma. And when I say trauma, what I mean is my crazy, because that's how it feels, you know, when you're going through a time where you're just not able to be your full self. And so what I do is I help strategize and navigate, and I help women find that attorney or that doctor or that psychologist or whomever it is that's going to support them. I especially will focus on helping them find more holistic supporters. So for example, I use a life coach who specializes in trauma and somatic experiencing. So that's my most current modality that I've been using. And you all have featured a few people who offer other modalities that help with trauma. For example, Stacey Claxton was on. That was an amazing, amazing show. And the EMDR and tapping and just all these different options. So I help people to not only understand and get through the process, but also find their special supporters who are going to be with them to help them heal along the journey. Because sometimes we wait until the journey's over. I waited until the journey was over to start healing, and we don't have to do that. We can start healing along the way, and I can do some of the heavy thinking and build a nice framework for you to work within so that you're not alone. And again, systems were built to help people who are in a specific place in life. And if you're not there and you don't fit into that system, I can help kind of reverse engineer that to create an experience for you where your voice absolutely will be heard. They will not be able to ignore you.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what happened when COVID hit. And what happened for all of us was that Melanie contacted us and said, what if we manifested $1 million in 90 days? And that's when the Masterful Manifestors was born. What was that experience like for you in terms of Melanie asking, and what were your reactions to it? And then how did that like flow into your life?
That is a wonderful topic. So, as you can imagine, those of us who talk about trauma usually talk about it because we've been through it. So, I've gone through a variety of traumatic experiences in my life, and I had been diagnosed with PTSD back in 2012. And that journey has been interesting for me because what I've started to see is that in our world, I think a lot of us deal with trauma and don't really realize that we have it. So when COVID hit, I was super excited to help people. I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to need more help. And I thought this is going to be interesting time, a challenging time, but COVID itself didn't bother me at all, because I thought I can get through something like this. I can help people through something like this. And then I saw your challenge, and I decided to accept that I would love to be a part of showing the world and myself that it doesn't matter what's happening in our world. We choose the reality, right? There's going to be opportunities in COVID for essentially any person to try to pivot their business or their service that they offer in a way that they can still serve the world while earning money, and that money energy can be transmuted into something beautiful in the world. So I decided to accept the challenge, and I was super excited to do so.
Yeah, it's really great having you in the group and doing all the shares and just sharing the positivity and you know, the ups and downs that went along with it too. So it was really great having you in the group. Obviously, you know, you're a good friend of mine, and it was really good to have the support as well. So I'm glad that you're in the group and totally participated. One of the things, kind of shifting back to what it is that you do, I know that, you know, I had a strong connection with you through MMA, and just right off the bat, you know, we got to meet up in person and that. And so one of the things with you, like you speak often of trauma, and that's a big thing, and that you help out. And I do remember like going back, I'm like, well, she's pretty cool, but you know, I don't need anything with that. And that was kind of my mindset, you know, I was like, I'm good, you know, I've got a pretty cool life. And then just through different things and through personal discussions that I've been fortunate enough to have with you, and watching just different things that happen and how the process works, and the different struggles that you've shared with your personal life and different things that happen like in the court system. I have a strong background with that as well, so I can understand, and we can kind of speak the same language. But one of the big things that I really discovered was that, you know, even with my mindset of thinking, oh, I'm good, I haven't had any traumatic experiences in my life, and that's where I was thinking of. But through talking about it, just so many different things that came up that I realized things were being stored a certain way. They are being stored in my body. There are different things that really, I guess, were traumatic that I just weren't recognizing. What kind of message do you have to people that either don't see it in themselves, or just kind of the general population? Because I often hear different stories that trauma on a very deep level exists throughout, and so many people deal with it, and either they're not speaking of it, or they're repressing it, or just different things like that, to where it's something that maybe they don't want to address. You know, how do you approach something like that, or how can you offer something to make it okay for someone to just kind of go with that and accept it and heal from it?
That is the question of the day, isn't it? I think that coming to embrace that trauma is something that produces a similar experience in almost all of us, but can have 1,000 different reasons, right? So when we realize that, and also realizing that it's not just the one experience that can produce a trauma in one person. So I mentioned that COVID wasn't something that necessarily scared me, as far as, you know, of course I'm taking the precautions and doing all of the things that are recommended to stay safe and keep others safe. But I have noticed that trauma can come up in so many different ways on your journey, and it doesn't even look the same for each of your experiences. So let me clarify what I mean by that. I did go through something that was a big trauma. And this is a term that's being not so much debated as just discussed a lot in the trauma world, where there's people who will label traumas big T's and little T's. And I'm not a fan of that, because I've been through both. I've been through some really, really big traumas, and I've been through some traumas that I thought, that's not a trauma. I can handle this thing, kind of similar to you, Melanie. And then later on, it turns around and just out of the blue knocks me off my feet, and I'm lying on the floor going, what in the hell just happened? I was not expecting this to be hitting me this way. So what I would encourage people to think about is, even if you haven't been through a trauma, what in your mind you think of as a trauma, a car accident, a terrible loss of a loved one, abuse of any type, you know that you've been through trauma when you're not thriving in your life and you are blaming something for it. In my mind, that is the example, and it's not necessarily the most popular term. People don't always want to hear that, right? I don't even want to hear it sometimes, and even with all the work that I've done. But in reality, when it comes down to it, whether we did go through something really big or something smaller, for example, for me, when the Black Lives Matter issue came out, and I started to understand what a systemic problem this is, and to understand a lot of the realities that I had accepted in my life as not being true, and that how I was kind of brought up didn't actually match the reality. I had a serious shifting of my world. I think so many of us have, for different reasons, and that can be a trauma, or just becoming aware of the traumas that others have been through. You can be traumatized secondarily. So realizing that it's that experience that you have of a paradigm shift, it could exhibit itself in anxiety. For me, it's often anxiety or depression. In the past, I've had, things really rock my world, and it can exhibit itself in numbing, where you are at one point. I mean, I was numb. I had no feelings. I would go to work, I would do my job. Like, why doesn't everybody just do their job? Everybody just stop talking, do your job. Why do we have to have all these feelings? And so it's a variety of expressions that the body has to cope. And I'm not the brain expert as far as having degrees, but I can tell you I'm for darn sure a lived experience expert, because I have experienced it in so many different levels, in so many different ways. And I feel that it really helps me to, even if I haven't been through the exact experience that someone's talking about, I can relate to that feeling of no more floor, I'm falling. I have no clue what's happened to me right now. And it could have been something as simple as visiting my trauma coach for the first time, my life coach, going, that was not a trauma. I can't believe that thing just wipes me out for 3 days, that memory. So it's a long-winded way to explain that trauma, we really want to learn how to give ourselves a hug and understand what the heck it is that's rocking our world. And you don't even necessarily have to know the exact root of it, but to understand that something is bothering me. I need to find some help. And there's so many modalities out there for it. And that's what I want the world to know.
And I just want to kind of touch on, you mentioned about how, you're going through something. And as far as, not having, or the experience that you have, I was fortunate enough to hear different things as you were going through different things. Just your level of being able to verbalize what was going on, even though you were battling certain things like going on with court and that kind of thing. You were able to go through it. You were able to contact people, and you were able to share your experience with them. And just the drive in you and the understanding of seeing what it was that you wanted, you would see the outcome. You knew that you had all this stuff to go through, and you were able to not push through, but to be able to use your tools and share that experience. Like, I felt like I was watching this journey as far as just parts of the tail end of part of it. And it was just so empowering to watch what you were doing and how you were sharing it. And I felt like I was like just wanting to cheer you on and support you in any way that I could, being so far away from you. But it was just so empowering. I'm like, she is going to help so many people through this process, just watching the way that you went through it. And you're definitely a powerful resource. I know you've been through it. I've seen parts of it, and it's just so great that you're there for people, and you're going to help make such a huge impact and change in this world. So thank you very much, and thank you for being open and sharing that and being vulnerable in that sense, and powerful at the same time.
Thank you. Thanks, Melanie. It's I think it's really important for everyone to know. This is a little trick that I use, and you guys are called the Masterful Manifestors, and that's one of the reasons I was interested in being a part of your group, is because we have so much power within us. I don't believe most people understand this, and I don't know what it is. I think it could have been a gift from my parents of homeschooling us. Not watching a lot of TV. We had a pretty isolated upbringing, but I don't know what it is. I think there's other people out there who had different backgrounds than me who have the same vision, but there is, the way I look at it is, no one is ever allowed to tell me what my destiny may be. And I don't care if that's in that I decide to be an astronaut one day, or if it's because they dare to tell me that I, as a mother, know something is going on, and that I don't fit into their rules or their vision of what's happening, or they're refusing to see it because they don't have the time, because their system's not built to have the integrity to listen to me. I don't care what it is. I will find a way in your system to help you hear me, and to help you hear these other women. And then, that's what I think we have to understand, is these were built by people just like us. And no one has a right to tell us that we have to experience the world in a way that is hurtful to us. That is wrong, and it's never going to stand. And I think the whole world this year had a come to Jesus moment to understand that is not the way that most of us experience the world in the systems that are currently built. And so I've had that drive since I remember being probably 7 or 8 years old, and knowing that I'm not going to do things the way that other people do things. And so whenever I would go through something, and yeah, you got to see the tail end of my last court battle, and just the courts are starting to evolve. So this third court round was a bit better, but really just coming to a place where I understand that we're all human, and we each have an experience to go through. But when something wrong has been done, you never, ever, ever let someone shut you up about that. And there's ways to do it that work. We don't have to just throw a temper tantrum and stomp and shout, because I've tried that. Trust me, it doesn't work. So that's what I want to teach people, is we have a voice, and we can understand systems, and it's powerful when you pair a way of going into a system, understanding it, that it was built by a human or humans, and that I am also an intelligent being, and that I have a voice. So it's really empowering. And I think that is really the big message that I want the whole world to know and to hear. And that's what I want to be a part of for the rest of my life. So I'm really glad to be here to share that.
It's great to have you on the show, Adrienne. I just want to shift back to your time in Masterful Manifestors, and having you in the group and seeing what you're up to and doing has always been such an inspiration. And I love the conversations we have, because you're just so open and willing and able, and take it on so well. So I'd just like to ask you to talk about the moment when we had the conversation about you staying positive throughout the process, and what insight you got from that, and what you took from it.
Oh, I will never forget that conversation as long as I live. You want to know why? Because Taylor, that started this ridiculous cascade of about 5 weeks of mayhem up here, okay? Yeah, did you get your psychology or degree and forget to tell us, a PhD or something? Dang, that was crazy. Okay, so Yes, I decided a couple of years ago that I decided a long time ago, but a couple of years ago, with the inspiration of Sean Croxton's Mastermind and Money Mind Academy and the Quote of the Day show, where I met all you guys through, that action would be the only way to really make these huge dreams come true, right? I have to start taking action. And so I did. And one of the things we learn in Sean's tribe is mindset, right? We have to really manage our mindset and have that positive mindset. And so while I have had this experience before of trying to plow through something without experiencing it, and I have heard this multiple times from coaches that I need to feel and experience what I'm going through while I'm going through it so that I can process it and get through it. I still had this ridiculous tendency to just say, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 checklist, 1, 2, done, 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 and just plow through it and say, all right, whoo, that's done. I'm so glad it's accomplished for the day. But doing it for the sake of doing it without the feelings attached. And while I would have the feelings attached to my visualizations and in my meditations and in my day-to-day like conversation, if I chatted with somebody throughout the day, I would really shut myself down and feel that I just needed to do. And even in the books that we were reading, I was thinking, I can't envision anything other than positivity, or I will ruin my next steps. I'm not going to attract what I'm wanting into my life. So for a long time, I don't know how long, Taylor, I don't want to think about how long, but I was not experiencing each part of every day with feeling. And so I said something, I don't even remember what I said. I posted one of my videos, my accountability videos in the morning, and I said something that triggered you to reach out to me. And if I recall correctly, it was something along the lines that you said of, and how do you think all these feelings, what are you going to do with them? You can't just ignore them. And I know those weren't your exact words, but that's what I took from it was, and I was like, crap. And then there was also the you were sharing that it's okay to actually feel those. When you feel the feelings, it's not going to ruin the manifestation part, right? You're not going to ruin your future by having a bad day and feeling it. And then literally, this is part of like trauma, right? I want people to know this. Like, we are going to constantly be learning. And there are going to be little things that this sounds little maybe, that will rock your freaking world. So for about 5 or 6 weeks after this, I mean, I was like depressed, and I was like having anxiety, and I was having this whole reboot back to like 5 years ago where like the world is ending and I can't believe that I'm so depressed. What is wrong with me? So it was wild. And this time, I was feeling it, right? So this is what happens when we don't feel throughout our day and when we exist to exist. And I know this, right? On a logical level, I knew this, but I had to have, and this is why I believe in groups like this are so imperative, so imperative. We have these blinders on that is called the experience of my name, the experience of Adrienne, right? And Adrienne cannot understand the whole world at once. Adrienne cannot see everything at once. Adrienne is doing her best, but all of us are just operating in our world and in our perspective. And it's imperative to have trusted people who you can say, guys, I don't know what is happening, but here's what I'm feeling. And then to have that little piece come through, and each one of you at a time, either through your experience or through something that you've said, have helped me to learn and grow. And this one just happened, and I'm thank God, Taylor, because I'm like, wow, I don't think I could have handled much more buildup. But to go through that experience this time, and let me tell you, to any of my dear friends out here who I called during that time, thank you, and I'm sorry because it was brutal. And my life coach, Greg Struby, thank you. Oh my God, poor guy. He manages to keep a smile through every session. But yeah, to be able to process that and to realize, holy hell, that stuff was stuck in there. That that was all just building up because I was determined that I was going to force things to go my way every day, and I was going to force myself to feel positive. And so it's imperative that we feel. And when we feel, we can experience things differently. And then when you've been doing this work for a little bit, the other part is that even though I was having those, you know, depression and anxiety and this whole up and down day where one day I'd feel great, the next I was totally Adrienne alternative copy number 589, I don't know, but it was really interesting to also look at it from the perspective of this is good, and giving myself a hug every day and saying, all right, girl, you know, let it out, just let it out. Who can I call that I haven't called in the last like 7 days that can handle me today? and just thinking like, all right, it's going to be all right. And because I'm feeling this and because I'm understanding it, it's giving me more perspective to be the better version of me, to help more people, right? Because it's been a long time since I went that deep. And we all, there's a place inside of me that still wants to protect when I am around people going through that. And to an extent, you know, we do. And like I said, I know that I can only call certain people so many times before they're going to be like, Adrienne, I can't handle you. And you know, it's good to know the boundaries, to set boundaries, but you also can learn to set boundaries on yourself for when you're going through something like that, and to have your support system built up and your network built up. So Taylor, yes, that was quite the cascade of events that you affected. I'm forever grateful, and geez, yeah.
Yeah, I just like to throw in there though, I get what you're saying, but don't forget, don't assume that certain people can't take certain things. Make sure that those are a verbal like boundary, but you know, there are people that can definitely talk to you every day or be there for you. So don't assume that. You know, yeah, we're here. So we're here to support one another, you know. Awesome.
It's important for everybody to remember that, and especially those of us who that's something that I struggle with. Thank you, Melanie, because we don't have the right to tell someone else how much they can handle, right? And I think you very gracefully reminded me of that. And I think there are those in our life who we can trust with that. And then there are those that we do have to be careful of. And especially when we go to a place of fear or anxiety, we tend to want to go back to a comfortable place, which can be family of origin or friends that we've had for a long time. And sometimes we'll also have anger accompanying an experience because of things that we've been through with them, or maybe we feel frustrated that they don't understand where we've grown to, or maybe you know, there's a place, and I don't like, labels are tough because they're necessary, but they can be painful. So for example, when I go into a victim mentality, I have to be, I don't want to hurt others because I'm feeling sorry for myself. And so I think that's where, you know, knowing that I need to call professional help instead of a friend, because if I talk to a friend, it can really come out viciously. And this is, you know, this is real raw, honest talk, right? I mean, I'm not afraid to talk about this stuff because this is why we're at a place where we are in our world. Is because nobody freaking talks about this on a day-to-day basis. And to me, this is a part of experiencing the world. And that's why Taylor's, that conversation that we had was such a big breakthrough for me, was to just realize that in all the talking that I do about trauma, I'm sitting there ignoring a huge facet of my own feelings unintentionally, but because, and with the intention of being positive and good, bringing good to the world. But really, we have to experience that, Melanie, right? We have to experience that dark part. And there are so many different healthy ways to do that with good support people like you all, like professionals who are trusted trauma-informed professionals. And knowing that the more of us who talk about it and the more of us who are willing to be vulnerable, which in my mind is freaking brave, like Brene Brown is such a huge inspiration to me, then the more we can change the world and the way other people experience it and the way that they respond to us when we talk about it. I mean, I have had some pretty awful lashbacks. And this is where that tendency to not talk to people comes from, in talking about this at a workplace in the past, and in talking about this in different relationships where it wasn't safe to do so. And so, or maybe where that person, you know, not intentionally, but they're not ready to handle all their feelings, because I know how nasty that stuff can be when it comes out. But the reality of the existence of humanity is that it is there, it is a part of us, and we all need to learn how to help each other through it differently, how to talk with one another, how to make this an experience, a conversation of hey, how are you today? You know, we don't just say, oh, I'm good, how are you? That's such a habit that we've gotten into as a culture, and not just our culture. A lot of cultures are having these conversations right now. And, you know, Dr. Roten at the Arizona Trauma Institute is now in, I think, 19 countries. They were not expecting this. It's unprecedented. This conversation is massive, it's needed, and it's essential. And then it's going to help people who had the experiences that I had not have to have these experiences as much, because people are going to learn how to talk about this stuff at the root when it's happening. We're going to have people like you guys and groups like you guys where, you know, mental health and experiences of trauma are not just in isolated silos, but they're part of every place that we are. And I think that's what we're learning. And, you know, the year 2020, you know, there's a great way to look at this, even in spite of the pain, which is that we're growing and we're going to help each other out more now because of this. People are finding their humanity. And I think that's the most important thing that's coming out of this year. And there's people like you all and the people that you bring on here who are here to help. You know, we're ready to talk about it. We're ready to help. So that's the beautiful part.
Oh man, this interview has been a coaching session for me. My goodness, I resonate a lot with Adrienne, and just like, I'm the kind of person that lives my life to get through something. Like, just like, I got to push through, I got to keep going, I got to keep checking the list off. And so, yeah, hearing this, all of this is just like so important. And I'm glad that Melanie spoke up when you had said you don't want to burden people, because these two especially will call you out on that, because you don't know, you can't make those assumptions. Like, I talk to Melanie and Talos literally every day, but if I'm going through something, I can still call them outside of our meeting time, because it's so important, and they're so available, and they're willing to have that space. And I think that's another beautiful part of our group and having you in it, is there's so many wonderful people out there who are willing to have that space and to help you. And even if they cannot relate to your experience of trauma, they'll know somebody who can. We have such a beautiful network at this point that we're able to, you know, make that match happen and find a coach that will resonate with you. And you're never alone. That seems so cliche, but you really are never alone here. And so thank you for expressing that in the way that like really like hit me hard. I'm going through a lot right now.
I think, well, first of all, I want to say the reason why that even resonated with me to say that, Marian, is from what you brought up to me and you pointed out, to not assume. And so that's why it's so fresh with me. And that's, you know, you coached me on that. So that just kind of shows the full circle there. Also, just feeling this, I just want to remind people that feelings are very important. And this is coming from someone that does like to do, like you guys are describing, of putting it down and going forward, pushing through. Feelings are so important. They're a guidance tool. So it's not something to be controlled. It's something to realize, okay, what am I feeling here? And then when you feel that resistance, okay, that's an alert. Well, why am I feeling it? And to kind of look into it that way. So often we try to control feelings and, you know, focus on the positive. I do believe it's very important to focus on the positive, but tune in and listen to those feelings, because they're absolutely guidance tools. I believe, you know, following your joy is huge. It's because you're listening to all the other feelings and you're adjusting. And then when you ding, 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 find that joy, go with it. but absolutely not. It's, yeah, you have to experience those feelings and see why they're there, see why they're coming up, and see how you can adjust things, overcome, use the tools, and move forward. So feelings are a very important tool.
Yep. And learning how to identify when a feeling is coming up too. Like, for example, I think Marian, you said you're feeling it. So this is just a really quick, so I'm feeling it too, right? Just talking about this is bringing up feelings. So what's happening is I'm having like a sensation of a little bit of constriction and a little bit of tingling and warmth in my chest area. And I'm feeling a little bit of like, I'm getting a little bit hot and warm. You know, this is what we need to help people to understand, that feelings come out in the body too, right? Like you're saying, and we need to understand how to experience them. And the beauty of having people to talk to is that and then the professionals, you can have the people to talk to, and then when the feelings start to come up and you know you've hit an area that's like a trigger, right? That's a trigger for whatever reason. I don't have to know exactly why, probably because I'm being vulnerable in front of I don't know how many people. But it's always going to be there, right? Renee Brown talks about this, you know, every time before she talks, she's like, I'm so nervous. And Sean talks about this, and I think is it Les Brown, I think, that talks about how nervous that they get before they go on live to something. And this is human experience, and to be able to even just name it can immediately, I feel my nervous system already since I just named it starting to come down. So it's interesting, we take the power away from the body experience and help meld the brain body connection back together, right? When we can name it, talk about it, feel safer because we just named it, called it out. And then there's little exercises that I can do, like thinking about my toes and how it feels in my socks right now. You know, I was doing that while we were talking too, to help me just stay calm and breathing. So yeah, that's just an example of what it's like to have an experience of feelings. And I think that's a beautiful point, Melanie. It's essential to feel them. And I love that. I love your example of finding the joy and then going, oh, that way. That's so perfect. And that's, you know, my little tagline, right? Is find your joy. So I'm so glad you said that. That just gave me such an awesome visual.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. So Adrienne, could you tell us if somebody was watching this and, you know, they want to explore more, or they need a guide like you in their life to help them navigate these systems when they're dealing with trauma, where can they go to connect with you?
So everyone can find me at adriennerouan.com. I try to make it simple because, you know, when you're going through stuff, we don't want to try to remember all kinds of stuff. So adriennerouan.com, that is where you'll find my contact info. I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram, I have the website. So I'm pretty much all out there. My phone number is out there as well. It's 330-907-1168. And my email is adrienne@adriennerouan.com. So keeping it simple over here, people.
That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that information. I'm so happy that this conversation happened, and we're so delighted that you came on this show. So thank you so much for all of this. And y'all, you need to check Adrienne out. You need to connect with us, and yeah, we can have these conversations together.
Thank you, guys. This was so amazing. What a beautiful way to start the day.
Yes, agreed.